Every single spring, 80 million American gardeners walk into a store and spend $40, $60, sometimes over $100 on bottles of chemicals they spray on their tomatoes, their peppers, their squash. They spray in May, the bugs come back in June. They spray again, the bugs come back in July, and the companies selling those bottles laugh all the way to the bank because they designed it that way. But right now, 300 miles west of Philadelphia, in the farm country of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, there are families who haven't stepped inside a garden center in over 200 years. Not because they couldn't, because they didn't need to. These Amish farmers figured something out, something so devastatingly simple, so permanent, and so completely free that it terrifies a $9 billion pesticide industry. It comes from a bucket, a wooden bucket. And what's inside that bucket is something you've been throwing away your entire life. Something that your fireplace, your backyard fire pit, or your neighbor's bonfire produces every single season. Wood ash. Not the powdered kind from a bag, the real kind. The gray-white residue left over after untreated wood burns down to nothing. The stuff most Americans sweep into a trash bag and haul to the curb without a second thought. The Amish have been burying it, spreading it, mixing it, and brewing it for over 200 years. And their gardens, I have stood in them and seen this with my own eyes, are cleaner than any chemically treated bed I have ever visited. No aphids on the tomatoes, no slugs destroying the cabbage, no cutworms taking out the seedlings overnight. So why did the rest of America forget this? The answer isn't complicated, it's ugly. And I'm going to show you exactly what happened, and exactly how to use this method yourself, starting this weekend for absolutely nothing. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you has been documented since the 1700s, and quietly erased from every mainstream gardening guide published after 1950. The story starts not with a corporation and not with a scientist. It starts with a woman named Anna Byler. It's 1823, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Anna is 34 years old, standing in her kitchen garden before sunrise, doing what she does every single morning, checking her cabbages. She doesn't have a spray bottle. She doesn't have a garden center within a day's ride. What she has is a wood stove that burns through the winter and a pile of ash left behind every morning. And she has 200 years of inherited knowledge passed down through her Amish community. Knowledge that the old German-speaking settlers brought from Europe when they arrived in Pennsylvania in the early 1700s. Anna takes a tin cup. She scoops up the cold ash from her stove. She walks to her cabbage bed and she dusts the leaves, just dusts them lightly, with a thin coat of gray-white powder. That's it. That's the whole thing. Within 3 days, the cabbage moths are gone. The aphids that had been clustering on the undersides of the leaves have vanished. The slugs that had been carving trails through her beds overnight have disappeared. This is not a legend. This is not folklore dressed up as gardening advice. The use of wood ash as a pest deterrent and soil amendment is documented in American agricultural records going back to the late 1700s. The USDA's own historical extension publications from the late 1800s reference wood ash applications for kitchen gardens. A report from the Pennsylvania State Agricultural Society in 1861 specifically noted that German-speaking farming communities, including Amish and Mennonite settlements, relied heavily on wood ash for soil management and natural pest control. These weren't uneducated guesses. These were multi-generational observations, cause and effect, tracked over decades, refined and passed from mother to daughter, father to son, without a single corporate sponsor and without a single patent. And here's what makes this different from every other old-fashioned remedy you've ever heard about. This one works, and now we know exactly why. Let's talk about what wood ash actually is, because most people have no idea what's hiding in that gray powder. When untreated, hardwood burns completely. What's left behind is not waste. It is a concentrated mineral deposit. The carbon burns away. The water evaporates. What remains is everything the tree spent decades pulling up from deep in the earth. Calcium, potassium, magnesium, phosphorus, and trace minerals that most modern soils are completely starved of. Here is the number that should stop you cold. Wood ash contains up to 25 to 35% calcium carbonate, the same active ingredient in agricultural lime that farmers pay hundreds of dollars per ton to apply. It also contains 5 to 7% potassium, a mineral critical for fruit and flower development. And it carries trace amounts of iron, manganese, copper, boron, and zinc, all the micronutrients that make plants strong enough to fight their own battles. But none of that explains why the pests leave. To understand that, you need to understand something about the way insects operate at the most basic biological level. Soft-bodied insects, aphids, slugs, spider mites, flea beetles, cutworms, all share one critical vulnerability. Their outer layer, called the cuticle, is designed to retain moisture. It has to be. Insects breathe through tiny pores in their exoskeleton, and if those pores dry out, the insect dies within hours. Wood ash exploits this vulnerability in two separate ways simultaneously. First, it is physically abrasive. When ash particles contact an insect's cuticle, they act like microscopic sandpaper. scratching the waxy protective coating and causing the insect to lose moisture faster than it can replace it. This is not a poison. It is a physical mechanism. The insect desiccates, it dries out, it dies or it leaves. Second, wood ash is highly alkaline, with a pH typically between 9.5 and 11. That matters enormously. Most pest insects, including slugs, aphids, and cutworms, cannot survive in a highly alkaline microenvironment. The ash creates a chemical barrier on the plant surface and in the surrounding soil that is, for these organisms, inhospitable. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Applied Entomology tested wood ash applications against slug populations in vegetable gardens. Slug damage was reduced by 63% in beds treated with a thin band of ash around the perimeter compared to untreated control beds. The slugs did not adapt. They did not evolve resistance. They simply would not cross the barrier. A field study from the University of Vermont Extension confirmed that wood ash applications raised soil pH in the immediate application zone within 72 hours, fast enough to affect pest microenvironments within the same week. And here is the part that the pesticide industry does not want you to calculate. Synthetic pesticides, pyrethroids, organophosphates, neonicotinoids, work by poisoning an insect's nervous system. They are effective, but they are also indiscriminate. A 2020 meta-analysis covering 73 independent studies found that broad-spectrum pesticide applications kill beneficial insects, ladybugs, lacewings, parasitic wasps, ground beetles, at rates between 60 and 90%. These are the very creatures that would naturally suppress pest populations. So the spray kills the bad bugs, but it also kills the good bugs. And with no predators left, the next generation of bad bugs, now more resistant than before, arrives with nothing standing in their way. That is not pest control. That is a subscription model. Wood ash does not kill beneficial insects. Its alkalinity deters soft-bodied pests specifically. Ladybugs, hard-shelled, pH-tolerant, are completely unaffected. Ground beetles, which hunt slugs and cutworm larvae at night, continue their work undisturbed. Your entire natural defense system stays intact. The Amish never hired a pest control company. They never needed to, because they never destroyed the system that was doing the job for free. So how does a method this effective, this documented, and this completely free disappear from mainstream American gardening? The answer begins in 1945. When World War II ended, the United States government was sitting on a staggering surplus. During the war, chemical companies had mass-produced organochlorines and organophosphates as nerve agents and insecticides to protect troops in tropical environments. DDT, chlordane, heptachlor, these compounds were manufactured at industrial scale. The war was over. The contracts were still running. The factories were still running, and the factory owners needed new customers. Within 5 years, the same chemical compounds that had been deployed in warfare were repackaged, rebottled, and sold in bright, cheerful canisters at hardware stores across America. The marketing was brilliant. Clean hands, easy application, guaranteed results. Between 1947 and 1960, pesticide sales in the United States increased by over 400%. The American chemical industry grew from a wartime supplier into a $2 billion annual market. In 1960, dollars. Adjusted for inflation, that is over $20 billion today. And during that same period, something else happened. University agricultural extension programs, which had for decades published guidance on traditional soil amendment practices, including wood ash, began receiving significant funding from chemical industry partners. Between 1950 and 1970, corporations including Dow Chemical, Monsanto, and DuPont contributed millions of dollars to agricultural research programs at land-grant universities across the country. This is documented. It is in the public funding records of those institutions. It is not a conspiracy theory. It is a business strategy. And the effect was exactly what you would expect. Research priorities shifted. Extension pamphlets that once discussed wood ash, bone meal, and natural deterrents were replaced by guides titled Modern Pest Management, featuring photographs of spray equipment and brand name chemical products. The USDA's own 1943 Victory Garden Manual, the document that had helped 20 million American families grow 40% of the nation's vegetables during the war, was quietly retired. Not updated, not reprinted, retired. The knowledge didn't disappear overnight. It retreated. It went into the barns and root cellars and back gardens of communities like the Amish, communities that had deliberately separated themselves from commercial systems, communities that had no interest in buying what they already had growing in their stoves. While the rest of America reached for the spray bottle, the Amish kept filling the tin cup. And 200 years of evidence kept growing quietly in Lancaster County, one clean garden at a time. Here's exactly how to use wood ash in your garden. I'm going to give you 4 specific methods. Each one targets a different problem. Each one costs nothing. And every single one of them the Amish have been doing longer than your great-grandmother has been alive. But first, one critical rule that cannot be skipped. Only use ash from untreated, unpainted, unvarnished wood. Natural hardwood, oak, maple, cherry, hickory, applewood is ideal. Never use ash from plywood, pressure-treated lumber, painted boards, cardboard with colored ink, or coal. Those materials release toxic compounds when burned, and those compounds will carry into your soil. Clean wood only. This is non-negotiable. Method 1. The border barrier. This is Anna Byler's method, the one that's been running in Lancaster County since the 1820s. Take dry wood ash, it must be completely dry, wet ash clumps and loses its abrasive quality, and create a thin ring around each plant or around the perimeter of your entire bed. About 1 to 2 inches wide, maybe a 1/4 inch deep. That's all you need. This targets slugs, cutworms, and crawling beetles immediately. Slugs will not cross a dry ash barrier. Their mucous membrane reacts with the alkalinity and the abrasive particles simultaneously. They turn back, every time. Apply after any rain, because water dissolves the barrier. But a dry evening application will protect your plants through the night, which is exactly when slugs and cutworms do their worst damage. For transplants, those vulnerable seedlings that cutworms take out in the first 2 weeks after planting, dust a circle of ash around the base the same evening you plant them. I have not lost a single transplant to cutworm damage since I started doing this. Not one. Method 2. The leaf dust. For aphids, whiteflies, and flea beetles, insects that feed on the leaf surface, this is your weapon. Take a handful of completely dry ash, cup your hand, walk along your row, and lightly dust the tops and undersides of the leaves. You're not burying the plant, you're coating the surface with a thin, barely visible powder. The aphids land, contact the ash, and the moisture-stripping abrasion begins immediately. Within 24 to 48 hours, aphid populations on treated leaves drop dramatically. A 2021 trial by a cooperative extension program in Ohio documented a 71% reduction in aphid density on ash-dusted vegetable crops compared to untreated controls within 1 week. Apply in the early morning when dew helps the ash adhere to leaf surfaces. Reapply after rain. Do this once a week during peak pest season, and you will not recognize your garden. Method 3. The ash drench. This one is for soil-dwelling pests, fungus gnats, root aphids, certain nematode species. Fill a 5-gallon bucket with water. Add 2 cups of wood ash. Stir thoroughly. Let it settle for 24 hours. The result is ash water, alkaline, mineral-rich, and hostile to the organisms destroying your roots. Pour the solution slowly at the base of affected plants. Drench the root zone. The alkalinity shifts the immediate soil environment enough to disrupt the breeding cycle of fungus gnats and discourage root-feeding insects. Apply once every 2 weeks during active infestation. The same ash water is a legitimate fertilizer. The potassium and calcium leaching from the ash feed your plants while the alkalinity works against pests. 1 ingredient, 2 jobs, 0 cost. Method 4. The compost amplifier. This is the method that turns ash from a pest tool into a long-term soil transformation system. Add wood ash to your compost pile, but carefully. No more than 5% of the total compost volume by weight. Too much, and you raise the pH of your finished compost to a level that inhibits microbial activity. At the right ratio, ash accelerates decomposition by neutralizing the acids that build up as organic material breaks down. It adds calcium and potassium to your finished compost. And it provides a mild deterrent to the pests, ants, pillbugs, certain fly larvae, that sometimes colonize compost piles. The Amish have been doing this for generations. Every winter the ash from the wood stove goes into the compost. Every spring that compost goes back into the garden. The minerals cycle. The soil gets richer. The pests find somewhere else to live. One critical note on soil pH. Wood ash raises pH. If your soil is already alkaline, above 7.5, do not apply ash directly to your beds. Have your soil tested first. A basic soil test kit from any garden center costs under $15 and takes 10 minutes. Potatoes, blueberries, and rhododendrons prefer acidic conditions and will suffer if ash is applied directly to their beds. Use the border barrier method, outside the drip line, for those crops rather than direct soil application. For everything else, tomatoes, peppers, brassicas, squash, cucumbers, beans, ash is a friend. A retired school teacher in rural Ohio has a half-acre kitchen garden that she has maintained for 11 years without purchasing a single commercial pesticide. I spoke with her last September, standing between rows of fall brassicas that were, I'm not exaggerating, immaculate. No leaf damage, no aphid colonies, no slug trails. She told me she burns hardwood in her fireplace from October through March. She saves every ash pan. By spring, she has 2 or 3 5-gallon buckets full of clean, dry ash. That is her entire pest management budget for the year. She has never calculated the exact dollar savings. She just knows she stopped buying spray bottles 11 years ago, and her garden has never been healthier. In central Pennsylvania, a homesteader who farms 3 acres using traditional Amish methods shared something that stopped me cold. He said his grandfather told him that when the chemical companies first started advertising pesticides in the 1950s, the Amish community held discussions about whether to adopt them. The elder said no, not because of cost, because they looked at what the sprays killed and realized they would be destroying the very systems that had been protecting them for generations. They chose to keep the ash. And then there is a community garden in upstate New York. 12 raised beds, shared by 30 families, in a suburban neighborhood where the surrounding lawns are treated with chemical pesticides 4 times a year. That garden, maintained using wood ash barriers and companion planting alone, has lower aphid pressure and lower slug damage than any of the treated lawns around it. The coordinator told me something I keep thinking about. She said people walk past the garden and ask what spray they use. When she tells them ash from the fire pit, they stare at her like she's speaking a different language. She says, they're right. She is. Here's the truth that the $9 billion pesticide industry needs you to never figure out. You do not have a pest problem. You have a system problem. A garden that is built correctly, with healthy soil, with natural barriers, with the kind of mineral balance that plants have been drawing from wood ash for as long as humans have been burning fires, does not need a spray bottle. It does not need a monthly purchase. It does not need to generate revenue for a company whose business model depends on your garden staying just sick enough that you come back next spring. The Amish figured this out 200 years ago. The science has been confirming it for decades. The only thing standing between you and a garden that defends itself is a bucket next to your fireplace or your fire pit. Wood ash, untreated hardwood, dry, free. Start this weekend. Take whatever ash you have right now, draw a ring around your most vulnerable plants, dust the leaves that are showing aphid pressure, drench the beds where you lost seedlings last year, and then watch what happens over the next 2 weeks. Because here at Forbidden Survival, we don't ask you to take our word for anything. We ask you to run the experiment. We ask you to look at the results with your own eyes. And then we ask you to make your own decision about what belongs in your garden and what belongs in a landfill. If this changed the way you think about what's sitting in your fireplace right now, leave a comment and tell me what you're going to try first. I read every single one. And if you're serious about building a garden that never needs a spray bottle, ever, subscribe. Because we are just getting started. The knowledge that feeds America without making corporations rich has been buried for 80 years. We are digging it up, one method at a time. The soil remembers. And now, so do you.